Everybody, Jay Baruchel. How are you, by the way? Nice to see you.
How's it going?
Hello.
Good to see you.
You too. How many times have you sang ole, 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 ole?
Oh, far too many. Far too many. Especially I was at the game on Thursday, and that was it's electric.
It's craziness,
It's
right?
a good time of year.
Oh, it must have been fun too, because I mean, not only do you live at Montreal and you have to go back and forth to work, but you finally got to make a film in Montreal. It's been a long time.
This was the first time I got to work at home in 10 years, man. I couldn't get arrested in Montreal for whatever reason. You know, I was like, I get to make movies in the States, and I get to make movies.
You're not hanging with the right people if you can't get arrested in Montreal. I can get you arrested.
No, if I want to get arrested, I know where to go. Yeah. But I'm from NDG, for God's sakes. But anybody knows that neighborhood knows what I mean. Yeah. DG. but no, it was a real big deal, and we got to shoot it pretty close to where I live and where I grew up, and we got to show the world of Montreal that people don't really see on movies, because if you watched English movies from the rest of Canada, you'd never know there were Anglos in Montreal, and if you watch French movies from Quebec, you'd never know we exist. So, like, we're here, everyone.
What's neat about this film too is that you do get to see both sides. I mean, your character speaks in French in part of the film, and it's not translated. You do your part.
That's it. That's as it is growing up. It's just like it's such a strange existence where, like, you have 1 foot in each world, and like I remember, like my first girlfriend in high school, she was French and I was English, and we both spoke each other's language, but we were both pretty nervous, so we'd have 2-hour-long phone conversations, her in French, me in English, and we both understood each other perfectly. Charming story, right, guys?
Yeah. No, but it does speak a lot to you're growing up with the reality.
Definitely.
You don't get just one identity. You have to work around two.
Oh boy, yeah, and I grew up during a pretty interesting time in Quebec. I lived right through the '95 referendum, and I went to school with kids who had FLQ written on their school bags and all sorts of interesting stuff. Yeah, it's we don't do anything easy in my city.
I imagine though, growing up in Anglo in Quebec prepared you for being a Canadian in Hollywood.
Yeah, yes, indeed. And no, indeed it did. Indeed it did. I came with an even bigger chip on my shoulder. No.
The Trotsky is, it's a kid who believes, your character believes he's the reincarnation of Trotsky.
Yep.
And tries to unionize the school.
Yep,
and,
after the failed effort to unionize his father's schmata factory, and that doesn't go so well. And in true Ashkenazi form, my dad punishes me by taking me out of boarding school and putting me in public school, and I try to unionize it, and ideally hilarity ensues.
Yeah, no, it does. I think it's a really funny film.
Good news.
It means a lot to you to be able to do, not just be close to home, but to be a part of a Canadian production. Last time you were on the show, you talked about wanting to make more Canadian films.
It's like the most important thing in the world to me. I think it's incumbent upon anybody from here that has a career in the States to keep making movies here, because what we've been used to, for the most part, is, our guys get famous here. They try to make a go of it in the States, and the only time we ever see them in Canada is when they don't get work down there. And I think that's a terrible truth. That was always something I never dug when I was growing up. And I was like, I don't know, we should be proud. We have the best country in the world, and people should go see our movies, and we should be proud of what we're doing.
And they're making some really great films. Well, I think The Trotsky is going to be one of those films.
I hope so.
But you actually do get the best of both worlds, because How to Train Your Dragon was this
awesome
monster success, and you're the kid.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, eh?
What was it like making that film?
Oh, it was amazing. It was like the easiest job I've ever had. I mean, it took 3 years, but like it consisted of me rolling in my pajama pants, unshaven. There's always a hamburger waiting for me. I never recorded for more than 2 hours, and then at the end of it, I got to be a part of this awesome, life-changing movie that makes kids happy. Yeah, it's pretty cool, man.
Did you, when the guy did Roger Rabbit in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, he wore a rabbit costume. Did you have to do anything?
Yeah.
Did you have a thing?
Well, whenever they wanted to take publicity photos, they always brought a Viking helmet in that I refused to wear. They were always like, you want to just put the helmet on? Come on, it'd be cute. Kids want to see you in the helmet. I was like, I don't think anybody wants to see me in this helmet. Yeah. So no, but if you're ever to see behind-the-scenes footage of me recording, it's a ridiculous process, because I'm literally just standing there with headphones. But in some of the more action-packed scenes, I'd be like pretending to ride a dragon, but just standing up straight in the middle of a studio, and there's nothing cool about that.
But in terms of all the films you've done, if you think, you've made a lot of really great films. You've been with Eastwood, and Tropic Thunder was an amazing film, funny as hell, all this stuff, and then you make this film, and kids lost their mind. And I wondered for you what it was like to be a part of something. You'd mentioned the kids thing, but to know that kids were so into this picture.
Honestly, man, it's like I promise you, my tongue is nowhere near my cheek when I say this. I could have retired, because when you're a little kid and you dig something, you dig it more than you'll ever like anything else. And the stuff you like when you're little, that's what kind of drives you to what you'll do later on in life, you know. And so, I firmly remember all the movies and cartoons that made me happy when I was a kid and made me want to do stuff. And so, like, the fact that I might have been able to do that for one kid is the reason I become an actor. Let alone the fact that as many kids seem to dig it. It's it's the happiest, most special thing in the world.
As you become more successful and as you become more in demand, is the process like for you to hold on to that part of you, to keep those lines around you, and recognize when sometimes the lines you drew in the sand need to be crossed?
Oh yeah, no, sure. I mean, I'm just I lead a fairly hermetic life, man. Like, I'm a real creature of comfort. There's a reason I live in the same neighborhood I grew up and live 4 blocks away from the house I grew up in, and live with 2 guys I've known since I'm 14. And I always, you know, whenever stuff gets crazy down there, I just hop on a plane and go home. And I don't know that I would have been able to last this long if I lived down there. I think Montreal and my friends and my family saved me. And also, like, when I get home, there's nothing for me to do except for, like, shovel my mom's porch or buy her smokes or something.
Hey, I don't give a shit how many Oscars your movie won. Go get me Du Maurier.
Oh, this is really it. This is it. No, and it's Belvedere. That's even harsher. My mother's family's from Nova Scotia. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, fair enough. Have you had the moment where you took a look at it? I love that. I love your mom.
Oh yeah. She's the real deal.
No kidding. How much of it is also about you can't really become too far from who you are because your mom won't let you. You still have those people who say, listen, boy.
Well, that's it. No, and you know, she's beaten the hell out of me enough times that there was never any danger of my head sort of expanding or whatever because my mother was always right there to tell me. And you know, and I'm a firm believer in that. And if I'm an adjusted, functioning member of society, it is only because my mother smacked me in the back of the head so much.
Like, I'm sure you've seen lots of joy in your mother's eyes because of the success you've experienced.
I hope so, yeah.
But have you seen fear at all? Because, you know, parents want to be protective of their kids, and then you're walking down this really interesting road now.
Yeah.
Have you seen fear in her eyes at all?
If she had any, she's real good at hiding that stuff. But I think she's more than anything, she's just kind of, she's real proud, you know, and like, my job's given her and my sister a pretty cool life, and, like, you know, what I tell her is the thing that I'm, like, happiest about in my career is that because I do what I do, she can feel free to just do nothing and read a book at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and not feel like she has to do chores or go out and do anything. Like, this is why I'm working, so she can just sit there and relax. Like, she gave birth to me and raised 2 of us. Like, it's time for her to chill, for God's sake.
Nice. That must mean a lot to you to be in that position, too.
It is, man. It's the most important thing in the world. It's like, everything I've done has been for the 2 girls in my life, my mom and my sister.
Do you know where you're going now?
Boy, yeah, well, Jacob, the director of Trotsky, he and I and Emily, the other star of the Trotsky, we all just made another movie called Notre Dame de Grace, another Montreal Anglo movie.
And isn't the woman that plays your stepmom in this movie, is she in that one as well?
Oh boy, is she ever! Yeah,
she's like
Anne-Marie. Yeah, she's a drunk lunatic in this one. Yeah, and but it's a very different movie from the Trotsky Notre Dame de Grace. Trotsky goes down smooth. Notre Dame de Grace is that's a heavy flick.
Well, you know what? We'll talk a bit about that and meet the guy that made the film, The Trotsky, and Andy G. Jacob Tierney's on his way. And we'll take a break. We'll come right back with Jacob and Jay. Baruchel, Jacob Tierney, who made this film. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Nice to see
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Very good film.
Hey, shake my hand.
Okay. It's hard enough to make films with the ogre of the American film industry beneath us. But then you've got the idea of being an Anglo filmmaker in Quebec. That is another rung to climb. What's that been like for you?
We can start telling the truth here?
Yeah,
no. It's been great. Yeah, for sure. Keeping things like the element of Montreal into it. It's so funny, the past few days, people keep asking me, why Montreal? And I'm like, well, why not Montreal? I'm from there. Like, why should I not get to make a movie about Montreal? But there's definitely, I think, some truth to the idea that the Montreal we're putting on screen in this film and in the next film, it does not go wildly overrepresented. It's not like Anglo's, you know, Quebec Anglo cinema is something that people are like, oh yeah, Quebec Anglo cinema, obviously.
In fact, the Montreal part of the film, or at least what I got out of it, was that it was the only time it became represented in some of the nuances of who the characters were, because they had to be true to their neighborhood. But it didn't matter where the film was in that sense, because it was just a film about, you know, a kid who's got this thing in his mind.
Well, that was always the aim of the game. Was that, you know, I felt that by making it more personal for me, I'd actually make it more universal. And what's really interesting has been in taking the movie around the world is that people don't, you know, clearly I'm not expecting them to get my little, you know, my Habs jokes and our, you know, our
West
Boys of
Island
St. Vincent
jokes,
jokes, yeah, things like that. That's fine. But nevertheless, audiences respond really strongly, I think, to the emotional element of the story.
I want to do a little thing with you guys, because Montreal plays a big part of your life. I want to play a little game of Best Worst.
Oh,
okay?
wicked.
Involving the city of Montreal, because a lot of people like to travel to Montreal.
Yes.
It's one of the finest cities in the country in the summertime.
You know, indeed.
It really is.
On the planet Earth.
How about this? On the planet Earth.
Even on other planets.
Yes.
I don't know what their
It's way
cities are
nicer
like,
than
but-
Sidonia on Mars.
Who's your favorite Hab of all time?
Oh, boy.
All time.
Well, I you know.
Don't make me choose.
Yeah, I just the generation I grew up in and the house I grew up in, it's got to be what? It's got to be Patrick.
Patrick what? How
I
about
mean,
you?
I wanted to say that too, but I also want to say Jean Beliveau.
Jean Beliveau?
Yeah.
I go with Matt Snassland. My favorite Hab of all time.
Super weird.
All right.
Totally.
I was gonna go Jan Boulis.
Jan Boulis, nice. Shel Dahlin.
Richard Zednik.
How about this? Richard Zednik, nice. How old were you the first time you tried to get into Club Super Sex?
I was 16 or 17.
16 or 17?
Yeah.
28.
28. No. How old am I now? No.
Smoked meat at Schwartz's, do you go for lean, medium, or extra fatty?
Medium.
Medium.
Medium, always medium.
Has to be.
How come?
Extra fatty, really? What are you doing there?
And lean, you might as well just drink.
while you're eating
and
it?
if you're eating lean, you might as well just drink
Go
a
away.
glass
Go
of
somewhere
water.
else. Yeah, go somewhere else. You don't know what you're doing if you're ordering lean. Or you're my mother, which is fine.
The orange julep on De Curry, is it a landmark or an eyesore?
Oh, landmark.
Landmark.
Yeah?
Landmark.
Very
And it's the most
strong.
delicious drink in the history of the world.
Who doesn't want to crack an egg in their orange juice?
Have you ever joined that drum circle? Where is it, in Jean-Mance Park?
What, Tam Tams?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I had a...
You have?
What? Come on, I went to FACE. I went to Fine Arts High School. I
That is
was
embarrassing.
down there.
I've smoked pot. Does that count?
You what?
I've smoked pot.
There?
In my life.
Oh, in
Does
your
that
life.
count? It's
That
kind of the
counts.
same thing, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, you could have done both, actually.
Probably did.
And no one would have said anything.
Who's played drums in there and didn't smoke pot? That's the question.
Fair enough.
Where's the best place to make out on the mountain?
That takes a lot of effort to get to the top of that mountain. You don't even need
I
to.
didn't say the top. Where's the best place?
I was
Oh,
gonna
the
say,
place right where you can get lost, right behind where once you can stop hearing the drumming, feel free to make out.
the food court at Alexis Neon.
The music in the film's great. Tell me about how you pulled, like, where you found these, like, what you were looking for in a film like this.
Well, it was pretty easy for me. I began rewriting the movie, and I was listening to Malajube obsessively while I was doing it, and so very quickly I was like, oh, maybe I should ask these guys if they would be into doing it, and they were really into it right away. And then the soundtrack, we were really looking to find cool Montreal bands.
And weren't you in kindergarten with the Stills? Oh, shut up. Don't say anything.
You're man.
You think that wasn't coming?
Well, no,
It wasn't in kindergarten, no, but somebody...
We'll tell them about his band. The people need to hear it.
No.
Yeah, the people need to hear
There's a song on there I made, that's all.
That's
Jay
great.
does a song on the soundtrack as well. As a lot of other cool bands like Brand Van 3000 and the Stills, and K9 gave us a song, and a lot of very cool folks. And yes, the Stills, I know the folks from the Stills from high school, not from kindergarten.
Kindergarten?
There you go.
My story was better.
It's called the Trotsky. Jay Baruchel, Jacob Thierny, everybody.